Welcome everyone to the Adversity to Advantage podcast, all the way from Melbourne, in the middle of, I think you said third stage lockdown. I'm not quite sure what the stages are, but it sounds pretty intense and like people might be losing their minds now. We've got Trav Bell. Now he is known as the #1 bucket list guy. So I'm excited about this conversation and all that I can learn. Welcome to the show, Travis.
Petra, very, very happy to be here with you. Hi, viewers. Hi, listeners. Stoked to be here.
Super good to have you. So tell us just a little bit about you. Who is the bucket list guy? What excites you every day?
Oh, great questions. What excites me every day is helping people live a life of no regret. Of regret-free life rather than regretful life. Live a life of more meaning, more purpose, and more fulfilment at the end of the day. To live their bucket list, obviously, before they get given a use-by date. Very unlike the film that is pretty crappy when I look at it. It's because it was about two guys that get given a cancer diagnosis and then they write a bucket list. And we all know that that's pretty stupid to wait until they get that use-by date. So, but human beings are human beings, and we shouldn't wait until something traumatic or dramatic happens to us or a loved one to start living our life and reprioritize the things that are really important, the things that really light us up and give us more happiness in life. That's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I was excited to get you on the show, because I find with the people that I interview, and as a coach and a therapist myself, that often humans are humans. They do need the catalyst point to kind of shake them out of habit mode and conditioning mode and what everyone tells them that they should do, to get them thinking, oh God, there's a whole world out there, to get brave. I mean, what do you see?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, it is. I'll tell you about my history in a second, but there's always breakdown before breakthrough. There's always confusion before clarity. There's always a storm before the rainbow. It's just how, unfortunately, it is pain that moves us in the direction that we need to go in before we go to the pleasure state. And look at this COVID-19 situation, the corona cyclone that we all find ourselves in right now around the world, and we're all taking this big collective deep breath in, and we're recalibrating about what makes us happy and all that. But at the start, it was just fear. It was fear, wasn't it? And then it was acceptance, and now it's opportunity and growth and looking at the silver lining. But we go back a month. We're a little bit later than you guys, maybe a month and a half for you guys, and it was a completely different situation. We'd be having a different discussion then. But it's that shock of what we've all gone through that's helped us find our compass again and see where our true north lies. A lot of people are really recalibrating right now, which is, I think, awesome. They're adapting, they're innovating, they're radically collaborating like never before. I just hope some of this stuff sticks. We don't go back to
trouble, isn't it?
Back to normal again. What
yeah,
was that?
That's always the trouble, is that you get the shake and maybe you reflect and recalibrate. But for many people, as soon as their comfort zone is back and they can sit back and not do maybe the daily work of facing their fear or continuing to reflect, that it just becomes the new normal of, maybe we have to do a bit more online stuff, but let's just be grateful that we're super safe now.
Yeah, I think it's look, hopefully, and hopefully people watch this and listen to this and reflect on their default, because the default, if your default was serving you and you are finding a lot of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in your default, then sweet. You are on the path to happiness, and no one can argue that. But if this has caused you to really reflect and help you to ascertain, all right, am I on that path? Am I truly living, my best life? Then maybe there's some changes. Maybe we stop living by default and live by our own design from here on, and enter the bucket list. And
because there really is something. Just a second, there really is something about the health scare aspect of what's going on. so that people are sort of recognizing, perhaps with loved ones passing away or at least getting sick, or even the fear just on the news, right? Just literally not just maybe a catalyst of depression or what one of those things that you could then build your life off of, but thinking, what if I did have a year left, like in that movie, right? So what is the essence of a bucket list? What is it?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a backstory about how I arrived to be the bucket list guy, because someone actually called me the bucket list guy after a really crappy seminar that I put on, my first ever crappy, feel the fear and do it anyway. I figure if Tony Robbins can do it, I could. But I was my background is I've been an athlete most of my life. That led me to do a phys ed degree. I got into personal training in the mid-90s, personal fitness training, that is. I started with one client, grew that to a chain of personal fitness training studios around Australia, had up to 300 personal trainers working for me, did about 2 million personal training sessions. Not me alone, it was me and the team.
Sure.
Tens of thousands of clients and their families were affected, motivated by our trainers, which is really cool. But I became someone that I didn't like. I love the end product of personal training, but I became a bit too much of a lawyer, a bit too much of an accountant. And I fell kind of my passion for that, that particular business model. And there was some cancerous kind of people in my life at that point in time, which caused me to go, into a downward spiral. And, I went through my own bout of depression. And as a result, when I look at my depression compared to other people's that I've since heard about, mine was very, it was very moderate compared to other people's. But your own perception is your own reality, right?
Of course.
And so it was a combo meal of actually of a friend of mine, actually, funnily enough, friend of mine gave me this book by Tal Ben-Shahar. You may or may not know who that is.
I'm not sure of this one, yeah.
He's a positive psychologist who worked under Martin Seligman, who's they say the
positive
father
psychology guy, yeah.
And so in that, Tal Ben-Shahar, who's excellent as well, there's this process in here, 3 intersecting circles and a Venn diagram. It was an exercise, MPS, the MPS process. What gives you meaning, what gives you pleasure, and what are your strengths? In the middle is your calling. So I did that exercise and I got motivational speaker. I'm like, shit, is that really my calling? Great.
Yeah.
But it was good because a friend of mine gave me this book. Basically what she was saying at that point in time, look, you miserable prick. Stop dumping on everyone when we catch up, and get a little bit happier.
Take some personal responsibility is what I'm hearing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I found myself spending a bunch of money in personal development seminars, NLP courses, life coaching courses, positive psychology courses. Every weekend that I had available for, I reckon, about 2 years, I was in courses, walking on fire, hugging it out and high-fiving with strangers, breaking arrows, bending bars, breaking boards, crying on each other's shoulder, all that sort of thing. And a friend of mine actually said, why don't, help me really compartmentalize it, which is, that from psychology, when you compartmentalize something, you kind of remove yourself, objectify it a little bit more.
You can observe from a distance, and have a different perspective.
Yeah. Exactly. And he said, why don't you teach this shit, Trav? And that was literally his words. And that actually helped me it helped me come to terms with how much money I'd spent and how many breakthrough moments I was experiencing every weekend. But it really helped me then go, maybe there's something in that. The third thing that helped me lean into this was I actually partnered with this lady by the name of Deb. Now, I'd given her my story, which, really in essence wasn't that bad when I reflect back on it. And I did my thing first, and a few little crocodile tears. And then Deb did her bit, and Deb said, look, that's all well and good, Trav. But I've just been, I've just had a hysterectomy, and I'm now cured of, clear of cancer. And she's a mid-40s woman, and I really wanted to have kids and I'm really kind of lonely. And I went, oh, shit. Like in all seriousness, like the book, Deb, my mate telling me you should do, it was just a perfect storm of me going, mate, what gives you the right to play small? Work out your values.
You had to be you had to be fed up enough in order to be able to listen to that perfect storm of messages, right? Yeah.
Got to be. I mean, personal development, and these are all kind of personal development messages. When I go out there and coach or speak as well, I'm not going to say, and I certainly hope that anyone wouldn't say that anyone's a particular guru, but someone, whether it be you, whether it be me, or one of these so-called gurus out there, they're just right place, right time.
Mm-hmm.
Right
You're ready
place,
to listen.
right time.
Yeah.
And it's probably a snowball effect of what's come in the months prior or the years prior. So right place, right time, that happened for me, and it helped me really get massively grateful. I had excellent health, no problem in relationships and that sort of thing. And I became massively grateful. I worked out my values, and then I literally went out and put on my first seminar. And I was shitting myself, absolutely shitting. My first public seminar, I nearly had to pay people to be there. And I packaged in all the 3-hour seminar. And I was so nervous. I've still got the footage of it. It was shocking. And compared to what I do now, sure. I'm a globally recognized, I'm a CSP now, a certified speaking professional. I certainly was not back then.
Sure.
And so I put on this talk and I shared about halfway through. It was going all right, getting a few laughs, a few aha moments and this sort of thing. And then about halfway through, I started sharing my list to do before I died. I always had one written down since I was 18. A lot of people didn't know that about me. And I had friends in the audience, they didn't know this. And I said, well, who else has got one of these lists to do before you die, actually written down, out of your head and actually written down? And 40 people were like, nah, donuts. So I'm like, well, why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why do you earn money? Why are you here? What makes you happy? What gives you fulfillment, meaning, purpose, all that sort of thing? Yeah. And it was like, the most common, responses I get when I ask people about their goals, it's pay off the house, put the kids through school and do a bit of travel when I'm older. Yeah, and probably fucking sick it too.
And then die.
Good luck. So I quite, I was just taken aback by that. And I started asking people, all right, what are your top 3-5 things that you want to do before you die, and blah, blah, blah. And for the rest of the seminar, and at the end of the seminar, Joe said to me, hey, Trav, how's all this list to do before you die stuff? It's got really, people really fired up. It's like a bucket list. You're like the bucket list guy. And I went, light bulb moment. That was 10 years ago. And I registered the domain name, and it's stuck ever since. I've stayed in that lane as a serial entrepreneur. That's very, very hard to do, as you get appreciate. And I put the blinkers on and just became. And by the way, too, I was on the Google machine. I'm like, who's like the expert? Who's like the Mac Daddy? Who's like the king of bucket lists in the world? Oh, look, no one. So I called myself the world's #1 bucket list expert. No shit. And so
you're now the expert.
I get caught up in media and this sort of thing, and people, in magazines and whatnot, even for different shows. And they were like, we want you, because you're the world's #1 bucket list expert. I'm like, yep, you got me. Yep.
So I get the happiness thing around purpose and meaning and, creating moments or experiences in your life that add value on top of that baseline of conditioning, which is put the kids through school, pay the mortgage, those sorts of things. And it's like adding this additional component that actually takes a bit of planning, focus, writing down, perhaps coaching in order to get you to that point, right? It's funny how we put so much time and planning even into our businesses and into our work and perhaps our kids, and right? And we don't put the same intention or the same planning brain onto like our personal experiences. So if somebody is like, all right, maybe they've seen the bucket list movie and they get that you want to do some stuff, but they're like, oh, I'll do it when this phase happens, or I'll do it when this phase happens. Like, how do you shake that up or get somebody started in thinking about this if it's a foreign concept to them?
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, I did a TED talk in front of 2,000 people at the biggest one in Australia, Tedx Melbourne. And you can go online and put in "Life's Too Short" by Trav Bell. I've got a mohawk in that, and that was my "fuck you 40" haircut. That was, and in that I introduce and unpack a piece of intellectual property, an idea worth spreading.
Sure.
About called the My Bucket List Blueprint. It's a 12-letter acronym for how to write a personally meaningful and holistic bucket list, and it really helps a person go north, south, east, west in their own brain, and help them to extract and articulate this personally meaningful list. You know, travel, which is what a lot of people think of a bucket list is one of the 12 categories that we introduce. And this gives people such a broad range of things to go after. And it's everything from obviously travel, it's the adventures that you want to do, it's the kind acts for others that you want to do, the legacy that you want to leave. There's material part to it in terms of buy something special, there's people that you want to meet. There's the kinds of things that you can self-express before the skills that you want to learn and things like this. So I suggest that people kind of have a look at that and then get to writing. You know, take time out of your life to work on this bucket list and on your life. These are a personal series of personal end steps that you can really, I think, have simmer to the surface when you go through it. And it's not about comparing mine against yours or yours against ours. It's really personal. And it's a lesson really in self-leadership as well. Because really, this is the stuff that lights people up. And this is the stuff that brings meaning, brings purpose. And I think we're all going, I call them sheeple, that we're living by default, not by design. There's, I'd hate to say in the UK, about 70% of people, 75% of people are actually what they call disengaged at work. And that means that there's 75% of people who go to work every single day who are just there.
Just getting a paycheck, showing up.
To get the paycheck and go home and, and rinse and repeat. Now, I don't know about you,
which is actually terrifying. It's terrifying, that to me.
It's the matrix, isn't it? It's the matrix. I mean, we've got a whole system built around this thing.
Yeah.
But Petra, you know as well as I do, that's all well and good, but it's not. That's good for some people, but it's not. Look at the rise and the rise of depression. Look at the rise and rise of anxiety. Look at the rise and rise of mental health issues in and out of work. Look at the rise and rise of suicides. Look at the rise of this new thing called the loneliness epidemic. It's actually a thing. We know what a freaking pandemic is. There's no question about that. But the loneliness epidemic. So social media has had an adverse effect. Little did I know. I was meant to give a talk last week, a live talk to 600 people at this university. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it. So I was meant to give a talk on how bucket lists relate to the loneliness epidemic. I didn't even know there was this thing called the loneliness epidemic, but it's huge. These issues, mental health issues, were a big problem before COVID-19. And we spoke off air and just imagine what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
So the bucket list concept, founded largely on positive psychology, helping people be happier, gives people the tools to go out there and live life on purpose. It's not just about helping person write a list and then going and doing it. It's really how a person reverse engineers every aspect of their life in order to make that stuff come to fruition. It's the growth of them on that journey towards that destination. More importantly, it's about the person that exists on the other side, the person that we don't know yet, right? And that's called potential. And when we see and we experience and feel our own potential, it puts a smile on our face, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So I've got a couple of questions that I just want to sort of echo. What do you have an opinion on why some of us seem to have, entrepreneurs, particular people, this drive to meet their potential and other people don't? Like it's like a bit of a side point and not necessarily in your area, but I'm just curious.
Oh, look, that could be that could be DNA, it could be environment. I think, or I mean, entrepreneurs are problem solvers. There's a lot of people that are entrepreneurs that should not ever be entrepreneurs.
That's true. That's true.
Entrepreneurs like this cool thing that everyone's kind of, doing, being an online entrepreneur. Some people should just have a job and shut up and don't try and reinvent the world, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's a tribute, we can see that in the stats of how many small businesses and startups fail.
Yeah.
The hardest part about being an entrepreneur is have that. I mean, you've got to have to get through the years of growing the business and systemizing and hiring and firing, and it really takes a lot of us, a lot of you to do that over an extended period of time. You've got to take 5 punches and get up on the 6th. You really do. It's not for everyone.
No,
and that's okay.
It's a resilience test. But I love what you're saying, and we will put
Where do you get it from?
Sorry?
Don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. I just always find it funny because I would describe myself as having a certain restlessness that maybe other people don't have. And within that extreme restlessness comes an action or willingness to change it, whether that's learning something or testing something or failing at something. And it's not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes I wish that I would be content with a 9-to-5 and the simple things in life, which I am learning to appreciate during COVID-19. I'm like, oh, the flower is blooming, the sun is shining.
Why don't I choose this entrepreneurial path where all my shit's getting shut down and I'm not allowed to travel and inspire people around the world? That's my why. And I'm looking at the guy collecting the bins the other morning. I'm going,
he's got purpose.
He's really an essential service and I'm nowhere. No one essentially needs me. And it makes you reflect, doesn't it? I think it's a big, obsessive why as well. Yes. What is, like, I honestly, in my heart of hearts, want to change the conversation around depression and especially teenage depression. And the older I get, the more angry I get about it, the more pissed off I get with the current state of play. Being a public speaker, I really have developed the I don't give a shit muscle. It just happens when you stand on stages over and over and over again, and you really don't give a fuck after a while. So have an opinion, and I'll that's, doing my bit and that, having that deep why, that deep reason for doing that thing, is the entrepreneurial spark, I think, that some people come across. And they might not come across it until later on in life. They might come across it really early in life. But I compare my dad, I'm adopted. My dad is a fitter and turner in the same job since he was 17 until retirement. As a fitter and turner by trade, a mechanic, always watches the news, always bitches about the government, always, very scarcity kind of mindset. And me, his adopted son, I am completely opposite. Him and I didn't get along. We didn't speak the same language growing up. He still doesn't really understand what the hell I do until I took him to base camp on Mount Everest and Machu Picchu and Mount Kilimanjaro, and we did the Kokoda track and we did the Inca Trail. And so he kind of understands what I do now and he likes me being the bucket list guy.
Yeah.
And that's the real reason why I love to do it is to enable others close to me to lead fulfilled lives as well.
To get that spark. Yeah. And I love what you're saying about changing the narrative around depression, because as much as there's an epidemic and, and there's labels and it can be clinical and it could be serotonin imbalance and all these things, I actually think there's a direct connection between lack of meaning and fulfillment and purpose, those things that you're mentioning, and
100%.
depression, right? So we're not putting our finger on it, but we're deeply dissatisfied and not able to have a voice or shift things effectively. So in a way, depression is another avoidance mechanism of like, let me just shut down part of myself and not feel at all. If I don't feel how shit it is, I also won't feel, have the risk of feeling how great it is either, And so it's that middle road, isn't it?
Yeah, and 100%. And I've just done too much psychology work and too much personal development work, one on myself, and then two on tens, if not hundreds of thousands of other people, whether they've been an audience over the years. I've been doing this for 10 years, whether they've been an audience or through our, we've got now bucket list coaches, certified bucket list coaches in 19 countries. And at the end of the day, they're all out there running programs in places, in parts of the world where if you actually translated the word bucket list, it makes no fucking sense at all. But people get the philosophy, and that's really what it is. But we're waking people up little bit by little bit, from families to kids to teenage to Fortune 500 companies and everyone in between. And so I've got too much evidence that this stuff works. And this is the filter, this is the lens that we run all of our soup of personal development and psychology through, this bucket list, brand. And we've done that on purpose to make it more tangible, to make it more accepted, to not call it life coaching, but it's kind of like a life coaching framework, and to help people ultimately tool up so they can handle their own mental health problems and not outsource to a drug or outsource to go in deep therapy. Give them some tools to self-manage. That's
radical
what this thing
responsibility.
Is all about. Have people live their life on purpose and design their life on purpose.
I love this. And what a great opportunity during this time, as you say, if people have balanced out of the fear zone and are being a bit more reflective, to look at these prompts and this way of thinking about it. Because somebody might go, oh, I wrote down the 5 things that I want to do, but I didn't, as you say, reverse engineer it to think about, all right, well, how do I do that? What do I let go of? How do I create space? I'm turning 40 this year. So what a great opportunity. To dive in, watch your TED Talk. And because I've been, as an entrepreneur, we can get very like work focused. I'd say it's like that 80-20 is like, right? But the tricky thing is I love my work. I find it exciting. I find it meaningful. I find it fulfilling. And as my boyfriend of 9 months likes to remind me, there is more to life than work. I'm like, sorry, what are you talking about? He's like, what about the experiences that we want to create? And his 40th is next week. So I think there's this great opportunity this year for us to both
so here's what you're going to do. Here's some homework for you. Here's some homework for you. Watch the TED Talk. If you go to my website, just email me, and I'll share some stuff with you. Do your own bucket list. That's really important.
Okay, separate, individual.
And do a couples bucket list.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, we do couples bucket lists. We do a couples... we've got a concept called the reverse bucket list as well. We've got a family bucket list, and we've got all these different, our coaches and myself do all these different programs to help people really unpack this. I say a bucket list is a tangible life plan where our career plan or our business plan should fit into our life plan, not be the other way around.
Yeah.
So we really bring home, and I've always brought home the work to live principle. What we do for work or our vocation should do 2 things and 2 things only. And that is to spit out the cash flow and also spit out the time flow for us to do the shit that we want to do, right? Double bonus. I think the holy grail is where you actually are of service to a whole bunch of people, and you're actually finding meaning in what you do on a day-to-day basis, which a lot of people can't say. And I think if what you're doing on a day-to-day basis hits your internal rule book, your values, and you're congruent to those values, I think that is the holy grail right there, which a lot of people can't protest to having.
Yeah, which I would say I do have. And I'm excited that over the last years, I've done the personal development and generated the work that has the value base and is completely connected to my meaning. And I know that there's a slight gap that I haven't put as much attention on. Oh, now that I've got systems and people supporting me and I'm a little bit more time rich, like what is the point? Like, how do I fill that time without maybe the judgment of going, oh, am I wasting time? Like, should I, the entrepreneurial, like, if I'm not working, I'm dying sort of thing. And just creating space for adventure.
Believe me. How long have you owned your business for?
So the business in this iteration has been going 2 years, and I guess it's been growing pretty quickly over that time.
Yeah, cool. And having a relationship is equally important.
It takes investment too. It takes focus and attention.
Totally. And that comes down to how we create rules for ourselves on a day-to-day basis. So that we can be present. All right, be present to our health, the people around us, our relationship, our kids, and our work. I do a lot of this productivity hacking, to help people, normally founders, C-level executives, and that sort of thing, about how to help them not be a psycho at work. Nice. How to help them have a life and really leverage their strengths, outsource their weaknesses, go to the things in their work or in their businesses where they find flow in. To train the distraction muscle, to not multitask and do all these things and create an ideal day as opposed to what they may be living right now. So we can be more present to our families, to have better health, etc., not just hustle hard and drive ourselves into the ground.
And burn out.
Good ideas in burnt out entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And then we lose the reason that we did some of this in the first place, which was to be our own boss and to create the life that we want. So I love this. So I will be looking at your resources and checking it out with myself and my boyfriend. So we'll have an individualized bucket list as well as a couples one. I am in. Before I ask my final question, where can people find you? So if they want to access your resources, we'll put the TED Talk in the show notes, but what else can they do to find you?
Yeah, for sure. Go to thebucketlistguy.com. That's my main site.
Yeah.
Or we've got bucketlistcoach.com as well for anyone who wants to suss out about being a bucket list coach. We're always looking to lock arms with the right kind of people around that. And, probably, what are we on LinkedIn and Facebook? What is it? Trav Bell - the Bucket List Guy, and Insta's my go-to at the moment, so that's bucketlistguy.travbell.
Sure, there you go. And we'll get all that in.
I haven't got TikTok, no Snapchat.
You're not there yet.
No Tinder, no nothing. I'm good. That'll do for the moment.
Manage it, self-manage, right, around what we do. Cool, we'll put all that into the notes. And finally, what are the current maybe top 3 things on your bucket list? So not the ones that you have achieved, because it sounds like you've done a shitload of stuff, but what are your next ones? What are your next top 3 perhaps?
Yeah, great question. Publish my book.
Lovely.
Number 1.
Good one. That's on my list too.
Very close to that.
Cool.
Number 2, do a stand-up comedy gig. Don't even talk about it.
You are now accountable to a fuckload of people to do that. That's terrifying, but so good.
I don't even know why I'm going to do it. It's just because I've got all these freaking bucket lists. Like, I've got my bucket list tribe of coaches around the world now, and they've got clients, and we've got this huge community. And me being the bucket list guy, I've got to set the precedent. I've got to set the example and feel the fear and do it anyway. So, but I've wanted to do it, and I challenge everyone that these are the things that don't cost a lot of money. They don't cost a lot of time. But on the other side, who knows? I might be the next Kevin Hart. I don't know. Probably not. But it's about exposing, one of the things I wanted to say before, and you'll see it in the TED Talk, people are dying at 40 and being buried at 80.
Yeah,
people give up. They stop pushing the envelope. We go through this midlife crisis, and I'd like to think, coming up to 40, we're going to have a midlife awakening, not a breakdown, but a midlife awakening. and to start living a lot more by design, a lot more on purpose. The third thing is to cross off when I can travel again. I was due to go down there to Brazil, Christ the Redeemer. I'm nearly at the 7 man-made wonders of the world. I've got 2 to go, Petra in Jordan and Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. So I'm going to cross off those 2, and then I've done the 7 man-made wonders of the world, which is part of my travel bucket list. So there's your 3. There's heaps more. There's about another 300. So that'll do it for the minute.
I'm sure there is, but it gives us a flavor of things that you're focusing on. Trav, thank you so much for this kind of loads of prompts to help us think about how to reflect during COVID-19 and how to get the back end having had an awakening, not just kind of making this another reason to feel fearful. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.